Hello and welcome to the 33 Larry Bird Minutes of Heaven we call the D1Baseball Podcast. I am your host, Michael Patrick Rooney. I want to say thank you to our good friends at Academy Sports and Outdoors. It's time to get ready for a new season of fishing fun with Academy Sports and Outdoors. Reel in the best gear at low prices every day. Plus, Academy offers easy ways to shop and save time, like free 1-hour in-store or curbside pickup on academy.com orders. Here's who I've reeled in for this evening. Fitty Barrels, Sauce, Big Tex, Kendall J. Rogers, Joseph J. Healy, Aaron J. Fitt. Gentlemen, happy Monday, week 6 in the books. How's everybody feeling?
I'm doing well. Runes, I liked Aaron's name more when it was Aaron Zebediah.
Yeah, we haven't gone Zebediah.
Yeah.
We kind of retired Zebediah once he was in last place in the pick'em.
That's a low blow.
Don't know.
I'm pretty sure we're all at the bottom, so I don't think any of us have room to talk.
Nobody's doing well. It is an
Just
absolute
Jack.
embarrassment for the entire staff.
No credibility.
Embarrassment for the entire. Listen, for anyone to be behind Shotgun Spratling is just an embarrassment. Shoddy, how about Shoddy talking junk to me in our email thread last
loved
week?
it. Yeah.
Listen. That's how bad things have gotten for the Fit Dogs. Shotgun Spratling is something on me. It's tough.
Yeah. It's a long season though, Fitzy.
Fitzy, at least you have Blake Gillespie though, right?
At least listen, that my fantasy team's crushing it. Not worried about those guys.
Yeah, it's the weekly picks that are. But Jack Delachamps, Jack Jackson, if you will, he's thriving, man. He was just going against the grain all weekend, and picked Texas and picked
Irvine, right?
McNeese.
Did he?
Georgia. He picked Georgia.
He was the only one that picked Georgia.
Boy. Good for
love it, boys. Let's start there. I have 5 topics for us. Georgia is one of them. It was a crazy week. It is very hard to sweep a team at home, let alone sweep a team on the road within your conference. And we had a truckload of road sweeps this weekend. Georgia was one of them. We were in on Georgia early. We had Georgia highly ranked. We thought highly of Georgia. They're not pitching the way we thought. They're ranked 231st in the country in walks allowed. They're ranked 123rd in the country in hit by pitch by their pitchers. The free bases are not going well on that side. Their offense is insanity. And I'll open it up there. Anybody, talk to me about this Georgia offense. Should we have seen this coming, or is this it's just a beautiful confluence of good players?
I will say this real quick on Georgia. I remember back before the season, we were talking about the Dogs, and I remember Aaron, he had seen Robbie Burnett a few times, and I remember him saying, like, this guy's like a superstar. Like, he's going to be like a huge impact guy for Georgia. And it felt like, every single time you saw a highlight over the weekend, it was like Robbie Burnett was involved. And so that's something I think about with Georgia is just, once again, like, they crushed the portal. Like, some of their portal additions have been awesome for them.
Yeah, and I mean, Rylan Zabrowski was a guy that I was not necessarily on in the fall. Like, I kind of thought, like, all right, this is an extra guy. Like, it's maybe get some time at DH, whatever, like part-time player. Maybe he's big and strong. He looked the part, but I was like, I don't know. Like, frankly, the coaching staff, like, he kind of seemed like an afterthought to those guys when I talked to him in the fall. I don't think they saw this coming. He's been a revelation. I mean, it's been absurd what he's done. But yes, that's the story for me of Georgia is no team, as far as I'm concerned, has gone more all in on the portal than Georgia has. And if you're going to do that, you better crush it. And they've crushed it again. I mean, 2 years in a row with this staff. I mean, Christian Adams, Devin Obie. I mean, several of these guys had big weekends. How about our guy, Brian Curley? I'm a big Brian Curley guy. I mean, they got him now in the rotation, and maybe that's like an answer to kind of stabilize that thing. I think he was very good. It was at the second game of that series this weekend. I think I still believe in the pitching too. That's the thing is, like, the offense has been the story for Georgia for sure. The pitching has been a disappointment, but like, it's one of those teams where they've got so much talent on the mound. I think it's a matter of finding the right roles and combinations. And I truly expect them to make a run as a pitching staff in the second half, which I just think, for me, they're a bona fide, I've been saying this since before the season. I think they're a bona fide national title contender. I really believe that.
It sure looked like it. Joe, let me steer your thoughts. If you have other thoughts in this vein, go for it. But I have a question. So Les Johnson has come in and he has been ruthless in building this program. And ruthless is a tricky word. Like I'm not saying that he's doing anything that's not above board. I don't believe that at all. I'm not saying that he's purposely being mean to people. I don't believe that either. But if you're going to be the CEO of a SEC college baseball program, you do have to be very laser focused on what's in the best interest of the program. And, like he took 2 assistant coaches from Kentucky. Like I'm sure Nick Mingione didn't appreciate that. Like I'm sure that hurts some feelers. But, and here's my question, Joe. In addition to your overall thoughts on Georgia, is Will Coggin and Nick Amorati, like those two, is that part of what we're seeing here in this offense?
I think it has to be, right? I mean, because we saw that some of the jumps that Kentucky made the last couple of years. I mean, last year was a jump for Kentucky over the previous year. Even like 2 years ago, you look at Kentucky's super regional team and it was like, yeah, they've got some nice pieces, but it's a lot of bunt and run and like smoke and mirrors is maybe too strong a word, but it was kind of, they were just patching it together. And then last year, I thought they actually were probably underrated offensively because they could actually mash a little bit. So I do think this is part of that. And what kind of impresses me in the big picture is that they're all in on the portal, yes, but it's not like they're really getting the like headline grabbing names.
Exactly.
Like you have to go fairly far down on the list of top transfers, not too far. They're not getting complete unknowns, but they didn't end up with Liam Doyle or Anthony Ianson or Andrew Fisher or, on and on and on. But they just end up with some of the best guys. So it's really impressive. And my last thing on them is that as much as the pitching has struggled, and it's fair, and Mark and I have talked about that a ton on our podcast, their pitching staff, even right now, is already deeper than what they had last year. Last year, the whole boat was built out of Colton Smith and Brian Zeldin and Leighton Finley and probably 1 or 2 others I'm just forgetting off the top of my head. Like, and that was kind of it. Like this staff, even with its shortcomings, is already better than what they had all of last year.
Yep, I think that's all fair, and obviously you go to Georgia or you go to Florida and sweep Florida. I know Florida's injured right now, but still, I mean, Kevin O'Sullivan's taken them to Omaha 9 out of the last 14 years or something insane. So it's even a compromised Florida team. You just don't go to Gainesville and sweep them.
And it wasn't competitive, right? Like it was just a totally lopsided butt kicking on the road in the SEC against a talented team. Like you just don't see that. Kendall's muted.
Oh, I was going to say the first game was 8-7.
Okay, yeah, but like,
the rest of the weekend was ugly. 32 runs in 2 games.
Yep. By the way, to put a bow on this series, I hope the Rylan Zaborowski thing continues because it is so cool. Yeah. I'm with you, Fitzy. I was like no chance this is going to work. Like I saw him at Grand Canyon as a freshman in 2021. He was enormous and he was talented, not as big as he is now, but he just looked overwhelmed. And then he went to, he didn't play great. Then he goes to a junior college and he wasn't like some junior college All-American. He's a suburban Phoenix kid. And then he goes to Miami of Ohio, and I thought, you know what? That's perfect. Like that's a good for him. He can go there and get an unbelievable degree and have a good baseball career. And then, last year, and he is a graduate of Miami of Ohio, which is cool. Last year was fine. It was 300 with 10 home runs, but nothing that said like, yeah, you should go start for an SEC Omaha team. And man, like not only is he doing it, but he's a baller. He's 6'5", 250. And controls the strike zone. He's not just some donkey that runs into balls. Like there's baseball skill there. And by the way, like Zabo is as good of a nickname as we have right now. So
Rooms, the other thing I think about with that series is like, we talk so much about Virginia and A&M struggles, but I mean, how about Florida now sitting at 0-6 and they've got to go to Ole Miss next weekend potentially without Liam Peterson again.
Yeah, and spoiler alert for something I'm writing this week on the SEC Extra side of things. I went back and looked the last 10 years, and the history of teams going 0-6 in SEC play, it's not great. So, like, I'm not saying you can't climb back to be a Omaha-type team because, LSU was 3-12 last year in the SEC and was a couple plays away from being at least a super regional. So I don't want to write anybody off yet, but like the history does not suggest there should be a ton of optimism.
So I'll throw this out to the group because it was asked in our chat, and I'm sure it's been asked of everybody on Twitter and everywhere else. Who do you have more faith in climbing out of this hole, Florida or A&M?
Florida by a wide, considerably more Florida.
Same.
Yeah, I would.
Florida, as long as Peterson is back. If Peterson's not back, and Coppola, I mean, I guess they're saying he's working his way back, but I mean, you can't assume he's coming back. So without those two guys and A&M at least getting Sorrell and Stewart back, I don't know.
And A&M, actually, you're right, Kendall. I'm going to backtrack already from what I just said, which was same, because I do agree that like A&M has pitched fine, right? Like that hasn't been a problem.
Yeah, their starters have been great.
By and large. Like it does feel like there's still a foundation there for the Aggies to make a run. But like I just look at the fact they're below 500 overall right now, which is crazy. They're 11 and 12, and Florida's 18 and 8. Like you're starting from much different spots. It's not just that you're both 0 and 6. Your overall record.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, for sure, Fitt. And I mean, the other thing too is when you look at like A&M's remaining schedule. I mean, you're trying to find a way, like a pathway to get to 13, 14 wins in the conference. They still have at Tennessee, at Arkansas, at Texas, LSU, at Georgia. Good luck.
The mulligans have been used. Go ahead, Joe.
Joe, what do you got on this?
I'd probably lean Florida because it feels a little like A&M's issues are something that like any sort of the getting guys back and it just doesn't feel like it's totally a physical issue with them. Whereas with Florida, I can't imagine a scenario where with the same coaching staff they've had, I mean, not the exact same coaching staff, but largely for a long time, certainly the head man has been there a long time, a similar roster in terms of talent to what they had last year. Like that's just injuries. And hey, they've also, when you're banged up on the mound, there might not be two worse teams in the country to play than Tennessee and Georgia. And that's who they've played the first 6 games of conference play. So again, I don't think it's all injuries, but I do think it's more just like we're really shorthanded right now, and we got the toughest draw that could be possibly drawn probably for what ails us. Whereas with A&M, it just feels like this is not just physical with A&M. Like this is something else, and I'm just because I can't quite put my finger on what that is, I'm less confident there, I guess.
Yeah, they look. Yeah, A&M looks really lost. Florida looks injured. A&M looks lost, and so that colors my judgment.
I would agree.
Kendall, let's go to Texas. You saw Texas and LSU.
Yeah.
I don't want to steer the jury, but I will offer an opinion. Like Texas just feels like they're just really efficient, right? Like they're just. I don't think Texas is a very deep roster, and if you can get into the depth of their roster, maybe there's some. You can expose them a little bit, but if you don't, and they're very savvy, like they're not going to just offer that to you. So Texas just seems like they're just really well choreographed, right? Like they're just on it. LSU, I'm worried they got found out a little bit this weekend. Now, that said, Jay Johnson's great at fixing holes in the boat. I think that's one of his elite strengths, but I do feel like there were some holes identified. You saw it, KR, go wherever you want, obviously.
Yeah, I'll start with Texas. It's kind of funny. I was texting with a A&M buddy of mine, and I was like, watching Texas really, I mean, like this looks like a carbon copy of Schloss's first team at A&M. They got to Omaha. Offensively, they're really balanced. They do an incredible job of working counts. They do an incredible job of station-to-station baseball. Their base running was really good. I think when you look at their bullpen, a lot like that 8M team back in 22, they don't have a lot of bullpen options, but the bullpen options they have are really good. I mean, Ruger Riojas was awesome over the weekend, up to 95. And then Dylan Volantis, I mean, how about the freshman just doing what he did against LSU? 3 1/3 innings of work out of the bullpen yesterday on Sunday without giving up a hit against LSU's lineup. I mean, that's insane for a true freshman. So, I was looking at the synergy numbers, and he's got a 49% whiff rate on his slider. It's a really tough angle. And so, you look at Riojas and Volantis on the back end to go with, Jared Spencer and, Luke Harrison continues to pitch at a pretty high level. That's a really good baseball team, and they're incredibly well coached.
And
so I think Texas is very dangerous.
Sorry, didn't Fuentes also get a save like the day before? Like, wasn't that?
The day before he went 1 1/3 and did not give up a hit.
No.
I was talking to Nolan Kane about Volantis, and he was saying that like their hitters are basically like in the fall, we're basically telling the coaches like when you see him for the first time, it's incredibly difficult to hit off him. Now, obviously we'll see down the road when he's, starts a little bit more what it's like the second and third time through the order. But that first time is just such a unique look. He was actually up to 95, in that short stint on Saturday. So it's definitely not a crafty guy all the time. Like it's real velocity, and he's only going to throw harder. For LSU, I'm not so sure I'm worried about. I'm definitely not worried about LSU. I still really like the offense. They work counts. They did a pretty nice job offensively over the weekend. Obviously Sunday was a little iffy, but like I think the two things that stood out to me were, obviously Kate Anderson on the positive side, Monster Milam on the positive side. I watched a couple of their games this year, but I'll tell you what, he was really good defensively. Like Milam had really good instincts. He actually had a really strong arm from second. He did a great job on double play turns. I was incredibly impressed. I mean, it was elite level defensive shortstop play, and I'm not sure I expected that coming into the season. It's kind of a little bit unorthodox build, I feel like. So he stood out, and then go ahead, Aaron.
I mean, and Jay said at Frisco, I think the way he said it was nobody on the planet is playing shortstop better than Milam right now. And like, that's how I walked away. I was like, wow, it was eye opening for 3 straight days. Like he makes every play. He can do it all. I mean, he's a dude.
Yeah. I mean, I would say this on the negative side. And again, I'm one of those people, like I don't go one weekend and just draw sweeping conclusions on the team the rest of the year based off one weekend. But I would say this, I thought LSU had a lot of throwers. I didn't feel like LSU had a lot of like really refined arms yet. Like Will Schmidt, big arm, command was iffy. Casey Evans obviously threw really well, but the rest of their arms outside of Casey Evans and Zach Cowan had a lot of command issues. And frankly, I mean, Chase Shores was not good. I mean, he kept missing his glove side over and over and over, and he could not land his fastball for strikes. So Texas kind of sat on that slider, and he really struggled. So I think Jay might have a decision to make with Shores in that rotation because, I mean, teams, what they're going to do moving forward, they're just going to sit there and force him to throw strikes. And I'm not so sure he can consistently do it right now. So I guess on the positive note on their pitching, I mean, it's a lot of velocity. On the negative, there's some guys that have some refining to do, but is this a staff that I think by the end of the season will be very good? Absolutely.
Do you guys think that lineup is scary enough? Like I'm looking at it like it's Jared Jones and a bunch of good college hitters. Am I being too hard on that lineup?
Well, Derek Curiel's a superstar,
but he's not a power threat. He's just a great player. Yeah. You're right.
I mean, he did hit 355 on
Oppo too,
over
right?
The weekend. Oppo, right? Yeah. But no, you're right. I mean, it's not like a overwhelming lineup, but they just have really good at bats.
But maybe it's okay. What's your take on that, Joe? Is that okay that the hitting skill's good enough that they don't need 7 dudes hitting 15 bombs?
Yeah, I think so. And I think one thing I'm looking at this season, it's premature to say this definitively, but I do think when you look at Tennessee having graduated Christian Moore and Blake Burke and Dylan Dreiling, and just you look around the league and a lot of those good hitters have moved on. Like I don't know that you need to hit 150 home runs this year in the SEC. There are years like that, and last year was one. I don't know if it's that same thing this year, so I think it'll be okay. I also think with LSU, their biggest problem, you guys have mentioned it, is Ianson and Shores on Saturday, Sunday. I don't know if that's that's not tenable with the way they're pitching now. I'm willing to give them a little more rope because for the most part, LSU's played fine, even with it, but they're coming from a position of strength where it's like, okay, if we need to make a change, like, I don't know, choose from this arsenal of like super talented guys, whether it's Will Schmidt or Casey Evans or, whoever. Like, I think they'll eventually land on someone who figures it out. I would also say my last thing with Jay saying nobody's playing shortstop on the planet better than Stephen Milam, shots fired at Bobby Witt Jr.
Yeah. You did, Bobby.
Go ahead, Aaron.
So I'm just gonna say, like, first of all, I think I'm just all in on LSU at this point. I mean, you criticize their offense, but it's like Jared Jones, Daniel Dickinson, Curiel, Ethan Fry, Milam, Reeves, Pearson. That's 7 guys, who've played all of whom have played at least 19 games, have OPS over 1,000. Like, what are we looking for here? Like, I get it. Like, they're not the 27 Yankees, but I mean, come on. Like, they've been plenty productive. I mean, I get like Jones is maybe the most physically imposing. And yes, some of those guys are shorter. Runes, I don't know what you got against short guys. We can take this offline after the show if you want.
The all fit team's my next thing I'm taking.
They have some guys that have like maybe hey, Dickinson, Milam. I mean, Pearson. These guys aren't like physical specimens. They're good players. They're
good players. I agree with that.
Good.
I would say too, just to like put some numbers on what I say, like, because I do think there is a thing where it's like maybe you don't have to be quite as physical. If you take the Georgia guys out of it, Zaborowski and Robbie Burnett, and I know that you can't do that, like they are part of this, but really if you take Georgia out of it, you've got Justin LeBron sitting on 12 home runs, and then you have to go to like Fahiva Aloy with 10, and it feels like, I don't remember exactly, but this time last year, I feel like Charlie Condon had 18, or something absurd. So again, we might look up at when the weather gets really warm, maybe this all changes, what have you. But I do think this is kind of a year where it's like, maybe you don't have to have 5 guys in your lineup that hit 12 or more home runs. And to Fitt's point, like maybe there's not as much home run pop there, but there's plenty of doubles. There's plenty of getting on base. And I think that group in particular is good enough to get away with that.
Yeah, I would add this too, just to kind of complete the LSU discussion, is I think their best choice in terms of the rotation outside of Anderson might be Zach Cowan. I mean, he was unhittable out of the bullpen over the weekend. I mean, that changeup was nasty. The slider was really good. The fastball velocity was fine. Like, he was untouchable. And so I kind of wonder if he ends up being in that rotation. Obviously, he's previously started at Wofford. So, I mean, he has experience.
And he was really, really good as a starter last year at Wofford, really good. And Ianson was really, really good as a back end guy in the past at UC San Diego. So, yeah, I mean, that's one possibility. You could just swap them. I mean, that's actually, I hadn't thought about that, Kendall, to be honest with you, but that actually kind of makes some sense. I will say that, like, I'm good with riding with Shores as the Sunday guy. Like, it's your Sunday guy. It's not your Friday guy. Like, some weeks maybe he'll be great. Some weeks not, but like, you got a Sunday guy who throws 96, 99 with sink, and and like when he was 4-0 before this week, like he was fine. Like, he wasn't like dominating in the zone. Like, it's, like a little bit hit or miss here or there, but like the stuff is so good. You got to get this guy as many reps as you can so that when we get to June, he's got the confidence that he needs to be, because I think really, like, if you've got that guy going, he could win you a national championship. Like, keep running him out there. And if you need to have a short leash now and then, fine. But like, I'm riding with that.
I mean, it's fair because think about how often we kind of said, does LSU need to maybe move on from Gage Jump, over the last couple of years? And then it's like, when they needed him, he was there, right? Yep.
Ty Floyd, obviously, like if you go back and look at Ty Floyd's season, it was not the guy we saw in Omaha was not that guy, for a good part of the year. He was just really talented. So very fair. Boys, let's take a quick break and let's talk about Tecovas boots. If you love our game, you know that smell, the one that brings you right back. Fresh cut grass, a broken-in glove made with real leather. It's exactly what you get with Tecovas boots. They're made for baseball people, whether you've been wearing boots your whole life or you're picking up your first pair. With over 200 steps of craftsmanship, they're built to last. They feel great right out of the box, and they look even better. As we always say, anywhere worth going is worth going in good boots. Find your pair to get today at Tecovas. That is such a glorious read. Whoever wrote that, we should hire that person. Goodness.
It's a great
boys,
read.
Let's move to the Atlantic Coast
that was
Conference.
Megan Smith at Tecovas.
All right, Megan, well done. Bravo. So, Fitzy, let's start with, we'll get to the road sweeps in a second. Let's start with Clemson and Wake. I watched some of that, and I just felt like, man, those are two awesome teams. The team I was really trying to figure out was Clemson because they're tracking to be a top 8 national seed for the 3rd straight year, and I don't feel like they've had this overwhelming roster. I feel like they've had a good roster. and they just keep being a top 8 national seed. So that's what I've been asking people is, what is Clemson's superpower?
Yep.
What say you?
It's funny that you use that phrase. What is their superpower? Because that's like a favorite phrase of Eric Bakich. I think he used it 3 times in press conferences this weekend. Like Cam Canarella's superpower is this. Anyway, their superpower for me is their plate discipline. It feels like that's something they've been doing for decades. Like I feel like you look up every year and it's like they're in the top 5 of the country in walks. And certainly, Bakich is part of that Jack Leggett coaching tree. It kind of makes sense that they're doing that so well, but
that's their superpower.
Maybe that's their superpower. It's the Venga boys. Gosh, it is a tough place to play. It is a tough place to play, and that's
or cover a game.
Or cover a game is a tough place.
We've got to get Brian Hennessy to put a stop to this madness.
It's a tough place to cover a game. It starts early. Benga boys starts early in the game. Ball 1. Oh, you fell behind 1-0. It's like we're not going to waste any time. It's first inning. Oh, you hit a guy. It's hours of this, right?
Love it.
like I'm going to be hearing this in my sleep for next week. This song.
And the visiting bullpen's like in the middle of a fraternity. It looks like. I mean, it's really aggressive.
It's hey, credit.
I love it.
Credit to them. They've built a very formidable atmosphere for road teams, and the fans there were 5,000 plus, and they're on you, and it's they wear you down. I mean, for me, they remind me very much of like 04, 03, 04, whatever, Yankees, Red Sox. Those games would last 5 hours for 9 innings, and they're just like so many pitches. Or like the A&M team was it the last few years, really. Like their discipline makes them so hard to put away. And so they're down 10-0 on Saturday. And I even tweeted at that point, it's the middle of the 3rd inning. They're down 10-0. And I said, I know better than to write this team off. It's 10-0. Like, this game is a long way from over. I was here last year, exactly a year ago, when they were down.
Florida State, right?
They were down 8-1 to Florida State.
Yeah.
They scored 8 runs in the 9th inning and won 9-8. And the next day they're down 11-2, and they come back and win that game. And it was exactly a year later. They gave Wake all they could handle. And they wound up losing 12-10 in that game on Saturday. Had the bases loaded, I believe, if I recall. It seems like 100 years ago. The bases loaded in the 9th, and Wake escaped. But the next day they're down 6-0 early again. And it's like no big deal, and like I want to credit Wake too, because I think Wake fought hard, and it was bend but don't break for most of the last 2 days until finally it broke on Sunday, and they lost the series. But like they fought, and it's a tough place to play. It was their first real road test of the year. It's a tough place to go in your first road test. I do think Clemson, in addition to just the atmosphere, I don't want to like over-index on that. Clemson's good. They have a lot of good players who are tough-minded. And again, like it just feels like that strike zone shrinks and shrinks and shrinks on you because they don't swing at balls, and it's just like, God, they're forcing you to make mistakes. And it's impressive. It's super impressive. And they've got enough on the mound, and they play great defense, in my opinion. I love their infield. I think they're just fundamentally rock solid. So I just think they're one of those teams where like there's not a lot of superstar power aside from Cannarella and Canuck, which, you got 2 superstars. That's a good place to start, actually. But like, it's not like they're, last year's Tennessee club or whatever. I mean, they're not loaded like that, but they are just very well put together. I think all the pieces fit.
I will say this about Wake, and I kind of touched on this in the rewind, but I think if you're Tom Walter, and Fitt brought up the first big road test, I think if you're Tom Walter and you had a pretty good shot to win that series without Conrad, I actually feel pretty good about my team moving forward. Given that. And
the way Fitzy said it is spot on. Like Wake, in the past, I've been critical of them being not the toughest group in the world, right? I feel like they've felt that, right? That they've tried to address that. And if there was ever a weekend scenario where you could melt, this was the one, right? Where you had big leads in front of a raucous crowd. The other team comes roaring back. They're really good, by the way. Like, this was a place to fold your tents, and they didn't fold their tents at all. They just lost. They just got beat. It was like one more quality at bat kind of thing.
I think that's perfectly well said. Like they hung. I was actually really impressed with the way they hung in there on Saturday, because it felt like a freight train. Like you're up 10-0, and then you blink and it's 10-8, and it's like, whoa, like, and they, but like there were so many base runners in both those games. There was just so much traffic, and they made a lot of clutch pitches and clutch defensive plays. And they were able to hang until finally, like, they just couldn't hang anymore. But like, you just tip your cap to Clemson. For me, like, it's funny because, again, not to harp too much on that Florida State series, but like that felt like a devastating couple of losses for Florida State, like devastating. Turned out like they were fine. They went to Omaha. They had a great year, but like at the time, those felt like really, really crushing losses. For me, Wake losing that series didn't feel that way. It felt like it was a great battle between two very good clubs that are Omaha caliber. And I would think that Wake will be just fine after this one.
Yeah, I there's a lesson to be learned with Clemson here, that when you take over a program and you're trying to reverse the fortunes, if you can you can't change your personnel in 5 seconds, right? You can change it quicker now than you ever been able to, but like you do the best you can with that. But if you can get competitive at bats out of your lineup, and you can catch the baseball. And what I think Clemson has really highlighted for me is bullpen competency. I feel like they've been really competent in the back. And I looked at the one game, Drew Titsworth and Lucas Malstedt. I mean, like that's a real thing at the end of the game. Like those two kids are not going to just hand it over to you. And if you're a right-handed hitter, man, I know you've said Fitzy Malstedt does great against lefties too, but man, that's a real bullpen. I like that group. Hey, let's do the other two ACC series. So, Joe, I'm going to come to you on this. So Duke sweeps Virginia at Virginia. Cal sweeps Stanford at Stanford. Those two series were at Virginia and at Stanford. Which of the four teams jumps off the page at you, Joe? Like, I'm having a tough time processing those two results.
Same. I guess I have less of a hard time not understanding, because it's the idea was that it was a sweep is hard to comprehend. But the Cal over Stanford makes a little more sense to me, just from the standpoint of this is not the first time we've done Cal has done this kind of thing. I don't just even mean this year. I just mean in general. They always have enough high-end talent to where, like, if they put it together on a given weekend, they can get you. And when you consider that, Stanford has been a little inconsistent this year too. We just moved them up in the rankings, but it's a team that split 4 games with Xavier earlier this season. And I think Xavier's fine, but it's not a team that we would expect to split those 4 games with them. So that one makes a little more sense to me, just because I think Cal is capable of this. On the Virginia side, like, I got to give Brian O'Connor credit. I actually talked to him today, as a matter of fact, because I'm broadcasting their midweek game this week. And he, credit to him for just being really open about, we're still figuring out who we are as a team. Like we don't know that yet. And, but at the same time, because he's Brian O'Connor, he said it in a way that he didn't say this, but sounded like after he said that, it was followed by comma, but we will eventually. And like, you talk about, do you have more faith in Florida or A&M? If you threw Virginia into that group, I'd still probably go Virginia. Mm-hmm. Just because like they've dealt with this before. 2021, they made a late run to get to Omaha. They've had years more recent than that where they kind of sleepwalked through portions of their ACC schedule. And I just think it's a team our program that tends to have like a steady hand approach where they just don't get too bent out of shape about this kind of stuff. And I don't think there's going to be any panic. And also let's not take for granted the fact that, that the ACC has some weeks where they'll be able to just out talent teams in a way that Florida and A&M won't be able to necessarily. So I think there's a lot that goes into that, but so weird that happened to Virginia, but I do still have a lot of confidence in them.
And also let's not forget, like, Brian O'Connor, Kevin McMullen, they'll also light you up if they need to. I mean, like they know when to push which buttons, and like it kind of feels like they've been searching last couple of weeks, and then I'm sure that happens. Like every group of players is different, and the flow of a season is different, and coaches need to do different things at different times, and sometimes it doesn't work. And you just got to try something else. But like, if there's any group of coaches that has earned the benefit of the doubt, like that they're going to find the right levers to pull, it is this group. I mean, again, Oak and Mac have been together for 20 plus years. I mean, like since I've been doing this, they've been doing it. I mean, like, it's like they're just such a fixture, and they almost always get it figured out. And so for that reason, coupled with the fact that I still believe in that roster, I just can't. Listen. I'm pot committed. I'm not going to back out now. I'm not going to sell low. That would be stupid. We're riding it out. We're waiting for the wave, and it's coming. It's coming.
And good for the other two teams. Like, Mike New, I think, has had really terrible luck at Cal. That's a tough job in a lot of ways. And they've been right on the cusp of, like it felt like they wrote the book on 15 Pac-12 wins, where you're just like 1 or 2 wins away from being in the NCAA tournament. And they've developed really good players. And then Chris Pollard, Duke has been kicked in the teeth several times this year. So, yeah, very interesting. There's a lot to process there. Kendall, let me direct you to our final section here. So Irvine goes on the road and sweeps a Santa Barbara team that has, Tyler Bremner and then Jackson Flora, like 2 first-round picks on the mound, and then and they put up 1 million runs. And then Troy won a huge series over Coastal. Go wherever you want with that, KR.
Yeah, I think the big thing that kind of stands out to me about Irvine, if you look at the last 3 to 4 weekends, they haven't scored less than 6 runs in a game on the weekend. They're actually 3rd in scoring, or 30th in scoring nationally at 9.3 runs per game. They're in the top 35 nationally in doubles per game. They're in the top 35 nationally in triples per game. They're just a really efficient offense. And I think if you look at what they did over the weekend, just incredibly impressive. I mean, they scored 28 or 38 runs in 3 games against UC Santa Barbara's pitching. That's really impressive. Brendan actually threw okay. I think it was 7 strikeouts, gave up 3 runs of 6 innings. Not dominant, but not bad. But the bullpen got absolutely rocked by Irvine. So I think Irvine, with just how good its offense is right now, I think they're incredibly dangerous. And they have Oregon State here in 2 weekends.
Fitzy, why don't you take Troy and Coastal? What you have any thoughts on that? That felt like a really big series win for Troy, because I think they lost the Friday game.
They did 11-3.
Yeah, they got blown out, and it was at that point, it's like, whoa, is this a kind of a statement weekend for Coastal? And Troy came right back, and those were competitive games. It was a competitive series, and actually Coastal was a team that I didn't love dropping out of the top 25 this week, but they were already kind of low. They were 23 or something heading into the week, and you lose your series, but they played well on the road. I mean, I think Coastal's good, but I was impressed with Troy's response. It's an offensive team for sure. It feels like they're still trying to figure out the way the pieces fit on the mound. It's another one of those teams, a little bit like Georgia, where I think their pitching talent is maybe better than the results to this point. I think there's more in the tank for them on the mound than we've seen. But, I mean, they did get a good start from Noah Edders on Sunday in that rubber game, and that's a really good arm, a transfer that they brought in this year coming off injury who, I mean, it was legit stuff in my fall look anyway. And I know Mark has seen the same. I mean, it's a mid-90s guy. He's physical and can spin it, and just he's good. And so that was encouraging. But, they just have a very good deep lineup with athleticism and balance and power and some speed, and they can beat you a lot of different ways. And so, I don't think Troy has lost a weekend yet, right? They preseason top 25 team. They're still
they haven't. They've been in the top 25 every week. And the other thing I would say too, real quick on Troy, is we're finally getting to the point where you can at least look a little bit at RPI. Whereas, even a week ago, there were a lot of outliers. Now, UTRGV and Notre Dame being in the top 25 are pretty much the only 2 outliers left. Minnesota's another one. But Troy is sitting there at 9 in the RPI right now, around Alabama, Vandy, Coastal, Ole Miss, teams like that.
That'll play. I mean, I don't know if the math works, but you start to think, if you get way ahead of yourself, could we have 2 Sun Belt hosts? Southern Miss seems like a really good team to me. Like if you made me pick a Sun Belt team, I think I'd pick Southern Miss. But I like all three of those teams. Like I think you're right, Fitzy. Coastal. That's what makes this series win for Troy, I think, really good. Is I really think Coastal's good. I think that's I'm not saying they're like 2023 Oral Roberts or 2016 Coastal or one of those types of juggernauts, but I think they're really good teams that could threaten in a regional.
Yeah. I tend to. I was going to say real quick, like I don't know if Fitt would agree with me here, just because he saw these teams in the fall, but like it feels a little bit like Troy and Coastal are maybe just a step behind Southern Miss for me, just from a sheer pitching standpoint.
I think that's probably an accurate read as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I actually missed Southern Miss this fall, but like I know I'm familiar with a lot of their arms, and I've read certainly Mark as well. And it does feel like they've got the most polished pitching staff of the three. I do think Troy has a lot of raw arm talent that maybe they're still trying to develop on the fly. I think they've got probably more arm talent than Coastal has. But like ultimately those both feel like more offensive teams than Southern Miss is maybe just a little bit ahead of the mound. I would agree with that.
Hey, Joe, you sat on UTSA for the weekend, and I feel like I want to know more about them. Like I know Patrick Hallmark can coach, and like Ruger Riojas was their most famous player for a while, and now he's at Texas. Ruger, is that how am I saying it? Ruger? Okay.
No, that's right.
Yeah, and now the Mason Lytle kid seems like a really good player. But what is UTSA's style of play, Joe?
It is an old school kind of offensive approach. They have some guys who are physical. They've got some strength. James Tausig has the most raw power on that team. But it's a lot of flat bat paths. It's a lot of like foul ball, line drive up the middle kind of stuff. They hardly swing and miss. They all have 2-strike approaches. They're just, I mean, it's like a poor man's, I guess is a little bit derogatory, but like, kind of like a poor man's Jim Schlossnagle type offense, right? Where it's just, they don't necessarily, Lytle is probably the superstar, the centerpiece, but it's not like they have one guy who just stands above the rest. But it's just an old school offensive approach. Like they're not afraid to shorten up. They look to hit line drives. They don't want to strike out. They're not willing to strike out. They're short on the mound. And that's just kind of the reality. They really want to use 6 guys. They have 3 weekend guys and 3 bullpen guys they trust, and they won that series against Charlotte using exactly those 6 guys. So that, yep. I
was just gonna ask real quickly, like, what do you got on my guy Andrew Detlefsen Schrimpf, who is having a big year for him? Like Lytle gets all the ink, but Detlefsen Schrimpf has 37 RBIs.
And he can shoot the 3 for a big man.
He can really pull the 3.
He was really good with the Sonics.
No doubt. Yes. Pacers as well.
Yeah, he had a grand slam this weekend. Detlefsen Schrimpf did. I
think Tausig, was it last week, Joe, that Tausig hit like 2 or 3 homers in a game? Something like that. And he had the big hit in the finale, game tied 5-5 in the top of the 9th inning, and he hits a backside double into the gap to score the go-ahead run. And he'd had not a very good weekend, and he came back and on Sunday and had a bunt single, an opposite field single, and then an opposite field double. So clearly just decided, I'm going to get back to basics and just get on base, because his swings had been a little big the previous couple of days. One of the other things that's interesting about them is they use a lot of position players. They used 14 guys on the position player side this weekend, and all of them started at least one game. So it's not even like we have this one guy who just pinch runs. Like, nope, they started 14 different players in the lineup. It's a fun team. Like I said, I think that if they're able to find a couple of more pitchers, or if those 6 guys just stay healthy all year and are really good, like I think they've got something. It's a team that, like, if Texas hosts, they're not going to want to see UTSA pop up, and not just because they've already beaten them, but because they're just going to be a pain in the rear end to take care of in a regional, because the offense is going to keep them in just about every game.
That's awesome. Boys, let's wrap with this. I sat on every pitch of the Arizona State-Kansas series this weekend, and your instincts, which I know all of your instincts because we've talked about this, are that Dan Fitzgerald is an awesome Division I head coach. though, let me confirm those reports that are in your gut. Like, awesome. Like, the coaching staff for Kansas they've got a great plan. All 9 starters in the lineup have started their career somewhere else, whether it was junior college, Division II, Division I, because they know that like recruiting a bunch of freshmen and hoping to hang on to them is not a good recruiting strategy at Kansas. They had 7 seniors in their lineup on Friday night, and they grind out at bats and they're physical enough and they know what they're doing. The pitchers are really interesting. Almost every guy they threw is less than 50% fastball. They're spinning you to death. And if you don't have a really disciplined approach that can adjust, you're going to have a problem. And they gave ASU some fits. It was my long story short on this series was this environment we're in where no game is safe, no lead is safe. I got to witness this weekend. Friday night, ASU kind of handled Kansas like they outplayed them. ASU sleptwalk through the Saturday game. They were not sharp, and Kansas was more than happy to win that game, and they did. And then in the 9th inning, Arizona State kind of fought their way through it. They've started to figure out their bullpen a little bit. They're winning 5-4 with 1 out in the 9th and a runner at first. Ground ball hit to shortstop. If Arizona State turns 2, they win the game. They did not. They didn't handle the ball well. They don't turn 2. 2 pitches later, Tommy Barth, who's a transfer from ETSU, 600. He's got 700 plate appearances in college. Tommy Barth hits a ball into the right field bullpen. They're literally, the ball is in play to end the series and win a huge series. It was a tight, hard fought series. Next thing you know, you're down 6-5 and having an oh crap moment. And then they come in the bottom of the 9th, and it would have been so easy for ASU to just shut it down because they had played like crap for 2 days. Like, they were flat, and now it's like too late, right? Landon Harrison, who was a name to write down, hits a seed for a single. Like, why is everybody worried? Like, I got this. So he hits a single, and then New Contradas, who's, we got to remember, New Contradas missed all of last year. He hits a home run into the right field bullpen opposite field for a walk-off. Huge series win for ASU because it was so losable. And I left there thinking Kansas is by the way, Kansas played without 2 of their rotation guys, Stites and Cooper Moore, who should be back in the next few weeks. So anyway, it was a great series, and it came down to the final pitch a couple times, which is the best part of the status of our game right now. So there you go.
Rinzi, do you feel like that those 2 teams were both like slam dunk postseason teams in terms of just quality?
Yes. Talent. Okay. Now my stuttering would say not slam dunk, right? But like physically, they look like regional teams. They didn't play like regional teams for every pitch of the weekend. Now, maybe some of that has to do with the fact that you're playing a good opponent, right? Like, but yes, like just did they pass the eye test? Heck yeah. Like, Dominic Vageley's up to 96 with, a 87 mile an hour slider. ASU's going to have a bunch of dudes drafted. They were playing without Kian Vu. They both look like very legit postseason teams.
Go ahead, Aaron.
I'm just super intrigued by the Big 12. Actually, it's a league that I want to see more. Like, I want to seek out more Big 12 series to go to because it feels like they got a lot of good teams. Between those 2 you just talked about, plus Kansas State, who I've talked about a bunch on this pod already because I saw them 2 weeks in a row. Arizona, who's like had that terrible first weekend, has just been lights out since then, and they're in first place and just won a big road series at West Virginia. Our guy Shotgun Spratling covered some of that. Texas Tech even has quietly started to maybe find something.
Cause problems is what they're doing. Now,
at least causing problems. You got UCF, you got TCU, a team that I still really believe in as a regional team. Is Oklahoma State going to figure it out? At this point, like they're 1-3. They're not on the bottom of the table, man. Like, what the heck?
And they're going through a lot too with the wildfires a couple of weeks ago. They had a couple of players.
Aiden Miola out for the year.
Yeah, they're just going through a lot. Houston, they take that series from UCF over the weekend. UCF had been red hot. It feels like the top 4 or 5 spots in this league are totally up for grabs.
Yep. Separation's really tricky in that league. Go ahead, Joe.
The bad news, Aaron, is the Sunflower Showdown already spoken for this season.
Who's got it? Who called it?
Yours truly.
No way. Oh, I missed that on the travel calendar. This is a real bummer for me.
Yeah.
Wow.
Aaron's really sad now.
Yes.
By the
It'd be
way, I will see
electric at the Hogue
TCU
that
later
week.
this week.
Say it again, KR.
I said I will see TCU later this week. They're in Houston this weekend, so get a nice look at the Frogs. Sawyer Stroh-Snyder, a talented freshman for the Frogs, hit a home run 450 feet over the weekend at Texas Tech.
Yeah, when I read about him in the preseason, I was like, I could see him having a real roller coaster ride of a freshman year because it's like that high upside freshman that can be exposed at times. But man, he's been good. He's really turned it on.
No doubt.
The let's cut it there, boys. This was great. The this is fun. You know, like the Big Ten and the Big 12 have never been more compelling in college baseball, I would argue, and that gives us 4 leagues that are super compelling. And then the Sun Belt, you know, we talked about that. We talked about the Big West. Like there's just so much good action in the sport right now. Iowa, I see you there at 7-2 in the Big Ten. Like that's super cool. So as we head to week 7, it keeps getting more and more compelling. Gentlemen, happy Monday. Great to see your faces. I like, Fitzy, as you would say, I like the cut of your jibs. I like the cut of our squad's jib.
And before we wrap it up, I just want to say, you know, listen, we didn't get to the Big Ten today. Check out, you know, Big Baseball and Beyond, Patrick Ebert and Burke Granger. They have a dedicated Big Ten podcast on our network. We've got an ACC podcast twice a week with, you know, hosted by Darren Vaught and with Danny Graves, of course, and with our guy Bradley Smart. Of course, we've got Highway to Hoover. So we've got multiple shows. Shotgun Spratling's covering a lot of ground with his podcast, interview show. There's a lot of stuff to check out. So if, you know, I apologize. We spent a lot of time on the SEC and the ACC. I get that we do that. So apologize if you're not a fan of those 2 leagues, but those are fairly prominent leagues in our league. But we try to cover a lot of bases and give some of those other guys a listen too. They're doing a great job.
Yes, 100%. Here. All right, gentlemen, that was great. Everyone have a great week. We will see you for the preview podcast this week, and we'll catch you next time on the D1 Baseball Podcast.